Hello, Hockey World. It is Tuesday, May 27th. I'm Julie Robenheimer.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Josh Rimmer.
And I am sunburned. I am Eklund. And you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. And yes, I spent a little too much time in the sun yesterday on Memorial Day. Down here in the States, it's Memorial Day also in Canada, right, Josh?
No, it was the weekend before.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. That's what I know. But yeah, one of these days is the same. Is it Labor Day that's the same?
Christmas is the same.
Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas is the same. Thanksgiving is different here. It's in October.
They do everything earlier. Their Thanksgiving is earlier. Their Memorial Day is earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We also have Boxing Day here, which you guys don't have.
Yes. Well, no, the London Noel, we call it down here in French. Okay, so yeah, so there you go. Anyway, it was a good weekend. We had lots of hockey to talk about. We have lots of hockey going on tonight. I guess the first place to start would be last night, because it's the most recent thing on our mind, and because it was such an interesting, interesting, and I'll use the word interesting outcome.
It was a clunker of a game.
Yes, Julie,
if by interesting you mean clunker.
Yes, but by interesting I also mean bizarre, because we didn't expect. I don't think anyone expected this kind of a game in the series.
I just think that with Chicago, I don't even know why we're playing Game 5. I just feel like they feel that they're done, and they're just. I haven't seen them look this defeated in a very long time. They just look like it's over already, and that's sad.
Do you guys think, though, that health might be a concern here with the Blackhawks? I mean, they were beaten down before the playoffs started. Maybe they just are not healthy.
I will buy that.
Yeah.
I will buy that, and I'll tell you why I will buy that, because it's one thing for them not to be performing at their best, but I think where the frustration is coming in is that they sit there and be like, oh, it's all mental for the Blackhawks right now, in my opinion, because they sit there and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where they're like, if only I was healthy, if only my shoulder didn't hurt, I know I could do this. If only this, I know I could do this. And that is where I think the sense of defeat is coming from. They just don't feel that they are up to par to be able to compete with what the LA Kings are throwing at them. And I don't think that that's a reflection necessarily of their potential and their skill and what they can do, but more a reflection of what they are physically able to do right now. Mm-hmm. And so I will totally buy that. Okay. Because that with everybody else, the frustration is, that we're just not performing at our best. And there's reasons for that. And for this team, you can see the frustration, and they are just agonizing over it. Yeah. And that's what makes it really hard and really sad to watch.
And
for me, at least.
I'm with you. I mean, Mike, your thoughts on that?
I mean, right now, it looks like a thorough domination of the Kings, by the Kings on the Hawks. I mean, Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane didn't score for almost 2 games until they assisted on Bickle's goal in the third period. And the Kings were up 4-0. I think they're physically dominating them. Corey Crawford is playing average at best, whereas Quick is, at his acrobatic best. I mean, I don't know if it's the fact that the toll that was taken on the Blackhawks. And remember, we said at the beginning of the playoffs that series against the Blues, where the Blues, I mean, they lost in 6 games, but the Blues laid a physical pounding on the Hawks.
And the Wild was no cakewalk either. I mean,
and the Wild was no cakewalk either. And the thing is, you'd think the things would be balanced because the Kings did go through 2 7-game series against 2. At least one. I thought Anaheim was tried to be physical with them and stood up to them. San Jose really didn't try to go that way, at least late in the series. But LA looks fresher, looks deeper. They're getting their goal scorers are scoring. I mean, if you notice, have you seen Patrick Sharp? Have you really seen Marian Hossa do a lot? I haven't. And Kane and Toews are then expected to carry the ball, and I don't think that they can do it against a team that is 4 lines deep like the Kings are playing right now.
But Josh, Patrick Sharp is one of Canada's top 10 sexiest men.
I didn't know that, nor did I want to know that.
Yeah.
So,
It just came out.
yeah.
So how could he be struggling? How could he be
I don't
struggling?
even. Why do you know that? No, I'm just kidding.
I haven't, because for years now I have been tracking the sexiest men in Canada, and Patrick Sharp is not. Oh, no, never. I'm just
Now
kidding.
that would be something if they were playing the LA Queens, but they're playing the LA Kings.
How come I'm not on that list? I live in Canada.
Yeah, well, you're somewhere. You're 295 with a bullet, Josh.
Nice.
No, but all things. I mean, Julie, you say that they're dominating them, and yes, they are dominating. But it was only 6 days ago, after the first 2 periods of a hockey game, where it looked like the Hawks were going to dominate this series. That's the crazy
that
thing.
is correct. But that was before they kind of lost their mental
Yeah.
edge.
I mean, they lost their edge, but
I mean, there's a lot that can happen, and we talked about how in previous episodes of this lovely little show that we're doing, how in-series adjustments are very important.
yeah.
And the Kings totally did it. They figured out what they needed to do to be successful against Chicago, and they've convincingly done it the past 3 games. The problem is that either the Chicago Blackhawks haven't done it, or what I think is more likely is that they've just not been able to execute their game plan the way that they would like.
Yeah.
And that's not even to say that they're not playing the way they want to play, but when they have their opportunities, they're just not able physically to do what they know how to do that makes them so effective to win games and score goals.
And their goaltending has let them down, I mean, that's been a big thing. And then, Crawford...
But has he well, I mean, last night was, but... I mean, I don't think Crawford's necessarily been playing terrible.
It's not terrible, but at this point, you got to play incredible.
Clutch.
I mean, you got to be incredible at this point.
You need clutch. That's true.
I mean,
Now, guy, the thing I find that really I'm not going to say the word, but that I find exciting, I guess you could say. I avoided the I word, exciting, is the fact that the LA Kings were 1 game away from elimination against the San Jose Sharks, and they've come back, and now they're 1 game away from the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah.
And in the East, the New York Rangers, a lot of people counted them out, and they went on a tear. So we could be seeing possibly 2 of the hottest teams, I guess, within the last little bit in the Stanley Cup Finals. I mean, wouldn't that be a great story? 2 teams that, what's the word I'm looking for here? They overcame adversity, and now they could be Stanley Cup finalists.
Well, yeah. And at many points during this year, both teams were kind of considered disasters,
Yes.
I mean, there were times this year when, both those teams are going to win the Cup, but there were times this year when both those teams both those teams could win the Cup now, but there were times when both those teams were questioning everything, like everything was up for grabs, Mike. I mean, right?
Oh, yeah. And what I find interesting is that the only game that Chicago won during this series was a game that the Kings had played Game 7 against Anaheim, and it was a 48-hour turnaround. They went and they played on Sunday after the Kings played in Game 7 in Anaheim on Friday night. The Hawks were off for 5 days, and in that game, the Kings, I think, outshot the Hawks and dominated them up to the end of the second period. I think they outshot them like 17-6.
And then they had 2 days of rest after that.
Right, and once they got those 2 days of rest, and then it was sort of on an equal playing field, the Kings have pretty much dominated the series. So yeah, I mean, fatigue has got to be part of it. And honestly, I think the lineup depth is a big thing. You've got guys like Kruger and Handzus as your number 2 center against the LA Kings, who can stack up, Carter and Toffoli and Kopitar and Mike Richards as your 4th line center. That's impossible to really match up against. And I think that, in the offseason, the Hawks are probably going to have to go out and look for a number 2 center, or maybe move Patrick Sharp back to center, because they just don't have the depth up the middle.
They've needed that for a while. I mean, they've been looking for a center. Remember, Handzus came there because they needed a center. That was why
they got rid of Boland. And honestly, I mean, Boland is a limited player, but I mean, right now, I'm sure they could use him.
What I see.
And the LA Kings defense too, guys. I mentioned Jake Muzzin last week.
Yeah.
He's got 5 goals now
I know.
in the playoffs.
Which is as many goals as any player on the Montreal Canadiens has. Think about that. I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, this is like the Kings are definitely. I mean, and Drew Doughty has just turned it on. I mean, he's just found his other level too, and that was what we were waiting for. You know, we talked about this last week on the show. I'm waiting for Drew Doughty to be that Doughty that he is, and he is that now. And when he's Drew Doughty, he's a Norris Trophy winning defenseman in my mind. He doesn't always do that throughout the year. And I mean, my gosh, right now, I mean, this is one of those situations where the Kings just look supremely confident. I want to see though. I really want to see what Chicago has left. I think we're going to find out. I think we're going to find out if this is injuries or not. Because, Josh, go ahead. I really think that I think we're going to see something in this next game from them.
And Eklund, who knew that Gaborik was in the same category as a Danny Briere, a playoff performer? Who would have guessed he'd have 10 goals?
I know.
Now you're overdoing it a bit.
That's insane. Yeah, Gaborik did this at all is crazy. I mean, when you think about what he's done for other teams. And what he hasn't done for other teams is a better way of putting it. But here he is, and it's the perfect fit. As Kevin talked about last week with us as well, he said, this is a guy who just slotted in and made everybody else in the right position in LA, and that's what's made a difference. And yet, Gaborik's there.
But this is what you would call singing for your supper again. I mean, he's a UFA. He wants to stay in LA. What does he have? 9 goals now? I mean,
haven't we talked about how it would be in his best interest? And whatever team that owns him to have 1-year contracts. We've talked about this for years.
Yeah, we have.
With Gaborik.
How
he always performs in his final year of a contract. Every contract, and that's why, remember when we talked about Jágr, how he only wanted a 1-year contract so that it kept him motivated and hungry? That is what Marian Gaborik needs. He needs a 1-year contract and with an option. That's what we'll call it. 1 year with an option.
Don't we call that the Alexei Semin contract?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the only guy that I can think of over the last decade who is in the prime of his career who has agreed to a 1-year deal a couple years in a row is Alexander Semin, and even he finally agreed to that long-term deal with Carolina, and his play has dropped off precipitously ever since he signed that deal. So
he agreed with them because he had to agree with them, basically. I mean, there was no one was going to give him more than 1 year. I mean, it was like. Gaborik's at a different point in his career too, where he's now that Simmons actually could be a UFA, he gets a 3-year deal. That's basically what happened. But even that's small, right? So, but yeah, I mean, Gaborik's in that same boat and just incredibly impressive. And the Kings they're a cocky group right now. They have historically,
but they deserve to be cocky. They've earned the right.
No question. And they came through 2 teams, and San Jose was a tough series. Obviously, coming back from 3-0. To win a Stanley Cup. I wonder has any team ever done that? I don't know if they have it.
Well, the other thing too is that a lot of people were talking about how it's really tough. I mean, the Rangers. I think the Rangers played 7 games last series, right?
Right, 2 7-game
right.
series.
So the Rangers and the Kings have both played 7 games in every series, and everyone was like, oh, there's no way, they could get past this round. It's too grueling to play 14 games, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? In 2 days, it could totally happen.
Yeah, I agree. It has totally happened. They are right now. They're on the precipice of this. Now, if this thing could all end, is it going to end? We'll go to Montreal in a second, and then we'll come back to the question I'm about to ask. But I'm wondering how quickly the Stanley Cup Finals could start. Could they start as early as this weekend or before? I mean, they could start this weekend, obviously.
Don't they usually wait a week?
No. They'll wait 2 days. It's normally with every other series, there's no break, or maybe there's a 1-day break. Well, for the Cup Final, it's a 2-day break. Right. So if it ends on Wednesday, it'll start Saturday.
Right.
I think Chicago has one more win in them. I think they'll win Game 5 at home. And
it's tough. It's tough to say this because for both, like you just said, it's at home. Right. And I think both Montreal and Chicago have a lot of pride, especially defending their home ice.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to lose on home ice. It's another to be kicked out of the playoffs on home ice.
Yeah, eliminating a team on the road is always tough. And Montreal has been in these games too. I mean, this hasn't been. We're not talking about. It's been a little different in Chicago, but Montreal's definitely been in these games, and it's been a good series. It's been a tight series. Tokarski's been amazing. I mean, let's just face it. I mean, face facts. He's really. I mean, that save he made on Marty St. Louis towards the end of the period, because we're back 2 games because we haven't talked for a while. Towards the end of, I guess it was the second period. I mean, that was just ridiculous. I mean, that was one of those, unbelievably pressure, high impact games. I honestly felt like Montreal played better in Game 4 than they did in Game 3 at times, and yet still, they win Game 3, where I think they kind of stole the game in Game 3. But Jules, what are your thoughts on this series?
Well, with this series, I think, like you said, it's a little bit more evenly matched, and we could even, I mean, heck, we're an overtime away from talking about Montreal being out.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things where to say that they're not capable of doing it, I think everybody's like, oh, Montreal's toast, they're done, blah, 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 blah. I don't think so, and I think even having Tokarski in net has been really great for them because, he is showing a lot of poise and confidence, and therefore the team in front of him is playing A, for him, and B, a little more relaxed, knowing that he's capable of saving their bacon if they screw up. So, that leads to a very different team in front. And I think that the Canadiens have been playing a little bit more aggressively. They've not been as safe as they were in the first 2 games. Like, I feel like the first 2 games, and we talked about this, where they were playing not to make a mistake, and it cost them because by not making a mistake, they allowed other opportunities for the Rangers to happen, and they cashed in on those opportunities. So it's one of those things where, they're playing with a little bit more confidence, they have a little more faith in their goaltender, and they're able to take better calculated risks, and, those risks have been paying off for them. But at the same time, you have a really good goaltender in Henrik Lundqvist, and you also have a Rangers team that is incredibly opportunistic. I mean, let's talk about shorthanded opportunities. They almost play even better shorthanded offensively than they do with the man advantage. So, not to say that they should be making trips to the penalty box on a regular basis, but when they do, they're, taking advantage of any opportunities and mistakes that the Canadiens might make and use them to their advantage. So that's something that's, of interest to me. But then, of course, you have the last 2 games are both in overtime. They could have gone either way, I mean, we could be talking about how, the series is tied and going back and now a 3-game series. So very interesting to see. I will say that the Rangers need to get what I refer to as the step on their throat and break their neck mentality.
Yeah.
They need to come out guns blazing tonight and just crush them. Crush their soul in the first 10 minutes. Get the crowd out of the game because that crowd is not supportive. The first sign of weakness, and they will turn instantly. So if they're able to pounce and score early, then I think they have a really good chance of winning this game. The longer that Montreal stays in the game, the better chance that they have, and the stronger that they get.
Yeah, and
so
I think a
if
win.
I'm New York, I want to score A, the first goal, and B, have that goal as early as possible.
Yeah.
Josh, you need like a sweat rag or something?
Oh yeah, it's like a sauna in here. I'm dripping all over the
You
place.
just keep wiping your face. You're like, oh God.
No, yeah, I know. I'm literally dripping all over the place. It's
well, thanks for that.
Thank you.
We have to shower after this again. How about the passing, though, guys, in this series, especially last game with the Rangers? That heads-up play by Dan Girardi feeding Derek Brassard.
Yeah.
I mean, that was unbelievable. Brassard just, totally annihilating the shot past Tokarski. And then the overtime winner, Marty St. Louis, right on the doorstep. I mean, I don't know how he scored that goal right over the top of his shoulder. He found that little spot, that little open spot, and he took it. And unbelievable. And you know what? I think everybody's cheering on Marty St. Louis with what he's had to go through in these playoffs. And, he's just a real feel-good story, these playoffs, guys.
That is definitely.
Just real quickly about that is I don't think enough has been said about the Rangers' transition game.
Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I agree with you on that. They're really strong in transition, and because they're really good at getting the puck out of their own end. I mean, they're one of the best teams in the league at getting the puck out of their own end, in my mind.
And they're so fast that the outlet passes are just really outstanding.
Oh yeah, and for my money, I'll take. I mean, there's a lot of talk about McDonough always as being the, I'll take Girardi. I mean, honestly, I think he's a better all-around defenseman in my mind. I mean, it's just he's just so solid and so. Looking in both directions, McDonough can be spectacular at times, but he can make mistakes. Where Girardi is just so solid, you can see why they went out of their way to make sure that they signed him when they were trying to sign Callahan and Girardi.
I'm not casting any aspersions on Girardi, but I don't think Girardi on his best day could have caught Brendan Gallagher on a breakaway like McDonough did.
Oh, no,
I mean,
no question.
McDonough is. I mean, it looked like he was hurt in the first, early in the playoffs, especially in the series against Philadelphia. And since I think Game 7 of that series, he's been arguably him and Doughty have been the best defensemen in the playoffs. And I am including PK Subban in that because I honestly think since the Boston series, he hasn't played that well. He played 33 minutes in Game 4, and I thought, other than the goal that he scored, which was a howitzer, it was a great shot. I didn't think he played that great, and I don't understand why Therrien was playing him 33 minutes and Markov 28, and then playing his bottom pairing not as much. I mean, I know that Subban and Markov are better than Mike Weaver and Francois Bouillon, but I mean, you have to balance out your ice time a little more and not let your guys get fatigued. And I think Subban later in that game was fatigued.
Subban was bizarre in that game. Let's just face it. I mean, not more than his fatigue. He obviously is angry for being taken off the power play, and that's just in my opinion, that's a great hockey player wanting to be on the ice all the time. I get that.
Yeah.
But when he scored the goal, his expression was the strangest thing. I tweeted about this. He scores that goal to tie it in the game, in the last game, and or 2 games ago, right? Yeah, 2 games ago. Sorry, he scores the goal on the shot from the point, and then he's like. He throws his arms up in the air like, oh, thank God I scored. I'm so tired. I can't even skate another inch. It wasn't even as if he was excited about scoring the goal. I mean, he's just played way too many minutes. I mean, Therrien's playing him way too much. It's insane.
It's hard to play that much.
What was that?
Yeah. It's hard to play that much.
It is.
There's a reason, 95% of the league doesn't play that much.
And realize this, he's not only their best defenseman, he's their best offenseman. All right, so he's got the pressure on him to not only be in his own zone and end strongly. He's got to also bring the puck up the ice. He's got to take shots all the time. He's their leading scorer. And it's kind of it's way too much. I mean, then you need a really strong bench coach to handle this kind of situation, and that leads to me for a second because
there we go.
I did some research today. For my blog, and I thought I would talk about it because I wanted your opinions on this. I don't know if you guys got a chance to read my blog yet, but I came up with an amazing statistic. Okay, between these two teams, between the Rangers and the Canadiens in the last game. Okay, if you look at the players who played the most for each team, the 9 players on each team who played the most amount of time in Game 4. It was a 66-minute game. Remember, it was 6 minutes into overtime. All right. So Subban, we just talked about, played 33 minutes, right? Markov, Emelin, Desharnais, Pacioretty, Georges, Gallagher, Plekanec, and Gianta. Those are 9 players, okay? Those 9 players have all played in all the games in the playoffs. They played 15 games, right? They have put together a combined 19 goals, okay? Those 9 players in 15 games have a combined 19 goals. Mm-hmm. Remember, Subban's got 5 of them. All right, so you have 8 players who've combined for 14 goals. They are a combined. The players who Therrien played the most in that Game 4 are combined minus 19 in the playoffs. Okay, so this is a team that's in the conference finals, and their top 9 players are a combined minus 19.
Mm-hmm.
All right, compare that to the Rangers for a second. Their top 9 players, right? McDonough, Girardi, Stahl, Hagelin, St. Louis, Strawman, Moore, Zuccarelli, and Nash. Top 9 players that played the most amount of minutes. Okay, they have scored. They're not tearing it up. They've scored a combined 25 goals, but they're a plus 23 in the playoffs. So you've got the top 9 on one side, a minus 19. The top 9 ice time guys for one team, a minus 19. The top 9 ice time guys for the other team, a plus 23. Now, to really bring this home, let's look at the bottom 9 players on Montreal and what they've done. Okay, they've played only in this last game. I want to go through there they are. Galchenyuk, Weaver, who's a plus 8 by the way, by far the best plus minus on the team on Montreal. Didn't play hardly at all, but he was really good in the beginning of the playoffs. Remember, he was a really good defenseman. They were talking about what a great trade this was. He's down to 13 minutes. All right, Eller, Vanek, Bourque, Briere, Bouillon, Weiss, and Bourneval. Okay. So they played, and some of these guys have only played a few games, so as opposed to 135 games played, like the top 9 players have all played 15 games, these guys played 111 games. Okay? And they've scored a combined 25 goals. So the bottom 9 ice time guys have scored more goals in less games with half the ice time in those games they're playing. Think about that for a second. I mean, it's like that's an unbelievable stat, and they are a plus 13. All right, so the top 9 ice time guys are a minus 19. The bottom 9 ice time guys are a plus 13.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, people have been getting on me about this and everything like that, and saying it's just about Danny Briere. This is really not about Danny Briere. This is about my frustration in watching what I think are like the wrong players on the ice every time I look on the ice, and it's just a frustrating thing. Vanek, Bourque, and Eller lead the offense in goals. They're the only guys who have 5 goals. They also have 5 goals as the Subban. The 3 of them combined for just over 30 minutes in Game 4, a game they have to win.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. I mean, so it's like these guys who they've gotten them to this point are the guys who are hardly playing at all right now. Explain, Josh.
I wish I had the answer. I don't.
I mean, it's just...
I agree with you 100%.
Am I crazy here? I mean, I'm trying not to.
No.
I am usually not.
I actually agree with you this time, Eklund.
I mean, it's nuts. I mean, these numbers are crazy to me. That you could have your top 6 player, the top 9 players that you're giving the most ice time in a Game 4 of a conference final, be a combined minus 19 in the playoffs to this point.
Well,
Mike?
Well, honestly, I mean, my opinion of the Canadiens has been that, I mean, first of all, they had talking about overall, they had the easiest first-round matchup of any team in the league. You played Tampa Bay with Ben Bishop out completely.
Yes.
You then matched up against the team that you beat 3 or 4 times in the regular season and have always had the number of. I mean, a Montreal team that wasn't even close in talent to the Bruins 3 years ago forced them to Game 7 in overtime. This year they beat them in Game 7. They're playing a better version of themselves in the New York Rangers. The Rangers are quick. They're just as quick, maybe quicker. They're deep. They have 4 lines. Their 4th line has matched up pretty well against the Montreal 4th line, which was the key to them beating the Bruins. Their defense, they have Subban and Markov, who, like you just said, played one played over 30 minutes, the other one played close to 30 minutes in Game 4. The Rangers have Girardi, McDonough, Stahl, and Strawman all playing around an equal amount of minutes, and you got the advantage of the Rangers having Lundqvist and the Habs having to play a more defensively responsible game, although you could question that with the breakaway goals that they gave up in the last game. Them playing a different type of game when in front of Tokarski than they would in front of Carey Price. Carey Price gives them a lot of confidence to be a lot more daring offensively with a bunch of players who are essentially average offensive players. And that's what's going on here. I think Tokarski is not at fault for this team being down 3-1. As Julie said, both games at MSG were in overtime. But right now, the Rangers are simply a better, deeper club, and I don't think it's ice time or Michele Therrien's goofy machinations.
I argue that because, I mean, the players who are the better players on the Canadiens aren't playing. So it's hard to sit there and say that they're not that the Rangers.
Brian Giunta. Excuse me.
Right. There you go. How can you say that Giunta has exactly? Let's bring him up for a second. His numbers are staggering to me. He's got one goal and 5 assists in the playoffs, and he's playing 20 minutes a game. And he's a zero. He's an even player, but he's worked himself back up. But my gosh, I mean, this is
He's the captain.
Yeah, he's the captain. All right, now, and Plekanec is a great player, no question about it, but he's also the worst plus-minus on the Canadiens. Is that because he plays all the time?
Yes.
Okay, yes. You could say it's because he plays all the time. But he also only has 3 goals. Danny Briere has 4 goals and has played, I mean, it's like the craziness of this whole situation. And then the other guys we talked about who have 5 goals. Plekanec has 3 goals, so he's playing all the time. Then are they making him play a defensive role? And is that smart? I mean, think about this. I mean, to me, Julie, I'm going to say this, and I said it before. It comes down to one team in the Rangers playing to win, and the other team, the Canadiens, playing not to lose. And that, to me, is what it comes down to.
I don't even think it's necessarily, playing to win, but the Rangers just feel like they have wings.
Yeah, I mean they
do.
And they're making great plays, and they're finishing goals, and they're free. But they're at the end of the day, I look at the Rangers' talent level, and I look at the Canadiens' talent level, and I honestly don't see this difference between these teams in terms of defense. I'll give the defense to the Rangers. I mean, I'll give the defense to the Rangers overall, of course, but offense I'll give it to the Canadiens overall. So I mean, it should be.
Well. I've said it before in regards to, the Canadiens and I don't know who said it. I think you actually both might have said it, that, I think it was Mike, who said that the Canadiens are a different team because they can take risks and do things that they maybe wouldn't normally do without having a guy like Carey Price, behind them. And, I said it earlier, you're seeing more and more of that coming back. So, but that's also why I think the Rangers need to kind of pounce early and take the wind out of their sails. It's kind of like a team that really shouldn't be winning, but the more you give them a chance to hang in, the stronger they get.
Yeah, I agree.
So, if I'm New York, the goal is to shoot everything and anything as often as possible.
Yeah. Bring some fire extinguishers to the Bell Center and put out that fire.
Exactly.
And if they can do that, then I think you're right, Julie. They have to, as you said, step on their neck and kill them early.
I agree. Now we're going to be joined by Matt Barry in a second too. He's going to be coming on here with us to talk a little bit about the LA game because LA Kings, because he was there too, and we're going to get his perspective. I want to get some perspective on him and see what the differences are between this team and the one that won the cup. So Carey Price is indeed not playing tonight. Josh, would you even play Carey Price right now at all? I mean, is there any point in that?
No, I don't think it is. I think you're hurting him more than helping him if you play him now. I mean, we don't know too much about the injury. He could make it worse.
He could, and also, I mean, and like I say, I think that it also sends a message because if you bring Carey Price in now and he is hurt and can't play, you got to go back to Tokarski somehow. And right now, I think you got to stay with Tokarski, Mike. Keep his confidence up.
Well, I think it's no question that you're staying with Tokarski. I think this is, again, Therrien and the Canadiens using the whole media thing as using the distraction. I mean, this is the same thing that Tampa did with Ben Bishop. He was out practicing, taking shots from the goaltending coach during the Tampa series. That's what's going on here. The whole stuff with kicking out the Rangers assistant coaches at MSG, the war of words about Derek Brassard targeting his head. This is all distraction. In Montreal right now, you're facing an elimination game and you want to take as much heat off the team and as much attention off the goal of not being eliminated off of and if that means putting Carey Price out there, and having them take a couple shots, then there's a little bit of a distraction for a couple hours. I think it's simply that.
Could be. I mean, let's talk a little bit about PracticeGate that was going on this week too, because this was a fun thing. Therrien accusing the Rangers coaches of watching their practices on the off days. I've been through these things before and seen coaches do this. I mean, I guess there's an unwritten law here, Josh. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, we know that in the NFL they frown upon this. We've had teams not suspended, but fined. It comes to mind what happened in with New England. I believe the Patriots were recording some practices a couple years ago and got in a lot of trouble for it. I never knew of this unknown unwritten rule between head coaches that you're not allowed to go and watch practice on non-game days. I don't quite understand that myself. Obviously, Therrien thought that he did that and that it's not right to do that, and obviously Vigneault said he never agreed to anything like that. So it's it's a he said, she said.
We've seen this. We've seen this happen.
What's up,
Matt? How are you?
Good. Oh wait, I gotta get set here.
All right, we're gonna just pause. We're gonna keep doing the show around you. So, what's this?
Oh jeez.
Wait, there we go. See?
Just what we wanted, a reporter with objectivity.
Mr. Lewis. So, Mr. Lewis, yeah, wow. So, Matt, we were just talking about this. How is this happening? I mean, last time we had you on the air, you had just written a story and predicted that the Sharks were going to be sweeping these Kings, and here you are.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I love to be wrong. It's been pretty incredible. I got to tell you, I'm just like I'm blown away. I'm baffled. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm not getting overly excited yet because as a Kings fan, you never know what can happen. The Chicago came back down from 3-1 last year from Detroit, so I'm mildly enthusiastic, shall we say?
Cautiously optimistic.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yes, exactly.
What's the difference between this run and the last run? I mean, besides the fact that I guess it's a little more surprising, right?
It's funny because they've been talking on the radio. I know that the broadcast Ray Ferraro last night said that this Kings team is better than the last Kings team, and I tend to disagree. I think that even though we have the 70s line here, I think that defensively, when we made the Cup run, I mean it was just incredible. I mean it was like when the Ducks had Pronger and Niedermeyer. I'm not comparing them to Pronger and Niedermeyer, but the piece was pretty stellar along with Mitchell as well. Rob Scuderi, I'm talking about.
Right.
And it was pretty amazing, that run. I mean, how we just rolled everybody on the road and just kind of just blew away people. And I think we were stronger then because you had Dustin Penner's physical presence. I think we're a little less physical this year and a lot more finesse and defense. This season, but overall, it's. I mean, we went 7 games both series, and Lord knows this series could go 7 games as well. And listen, if Chicago has to win at home, obviously. I'd certainly like revenge from last year when they took us out in 5. It would be nice to take them out in 5, and it certainly seems like they've lost a step or two. Sharp has lost his confidence, and I think that they were talking about, Sharp's going to gain it back because he scored that goal, with 3 seconds left over the weekend, and they said, he'd get his confidence back, and he takes an early penalty, which the Kings score upon, and you just walk, you see him doing the skate of shame, and he just lost all of his confidence. It was just kind of over. So it was like, oh, good, another one down, and no show time has disappeared, which is great for the Kings. And the only one that seems to really be doing anything is Jonathan Toews.
Yeah, and Toews has been amazing at times. I mean, Mike, you sent me a text over the weekend about, is Toews you think the best player in hockey? We've debated this before. Julie, your thoughts on Toews here?
Well, like I said, I just feel that they're incredibly frustrated because there's a marked difference in what they know they're capable of doing and what they know they're capable of doing right now.
Right.
And I think, he's feeling the brunt of that. I mean, he's always the guy that comes in the clutch. He's always been the guy to, say to everybody else it's going to be okay. But this time he doesn't know that it's going to be okay. And he is having a hard time, rallying his troops, if you will, and getting them to come together. Yeah. And right now, it's kind of opposite. And we've seen it a couple times. I think Dave Bolin did it. I know Duncan Keith's done it a couple times. You see during the game when Jonathan Toews comes off of his shift and he's hanging his head and his teammates are having to pick him up. And usually it's the other way around. And this is where you're seeing, like I said, the defeatist attitude that you rarely see out of this team. And it's just hard. And I think it's hard because they know that they're capable of doing better, but they just, for whatever reason that we don't know about, can't seem to do it right now, and that's hard.
I think it's Julie. It's also that they don't have an answer for the King. The Kings are so deep down the middle. I mean, if you look at Michael Hansen,
it's not even having an answer. It's just not being able to do it. Like, it's one thing. There's always a difference between how you see something happening in your head and how it actually happens. And for them, I agree that they're not able to match up with what the Kings are throwing at them. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I reiterated all of this, where they're not able to match with what the Kings are throwing at them. And but I also feel that there is a difference between what the Chicago Blackhawks are capable of doing and what they're capable of doing right now. And at their best, they'd be able to match up with the Kings for sure. But right now, they have to be dealing with a lot of bumps and bruises like everybody else is dealing with, but for whatever reason, they can't seem to get past it. It's like maybe there's too many bumps and bruises, too many guys. They're not getting their secondary scoring, coming in and scoring clutch goals at clutch times. All of those things. So while yes, I agree that they're not matching up, I don't think it's necessarily because they're not skilled enough to do it. I just think they physically can't do it, which is why it is so frustrating for them, because they know they can play better than what they're playing right now. And it's just like a cyclical, spiral. It's slowly going down to the abyss of mediocrity, and that is not the Chicago Blackhawks. So it's one of those things where they need to break it, but they need to break it quick. And the only thing that I can think that can break it is the pride of playing on home ice.
To me, that's true, and I also think that what you're kind of saying too, Jules, and what I think to bring us together, Matt, a little bit, it's like the fourth line thing again. It's like the matter of the third and fourth line, right, Matt? I mean, you guys have. That's what won you a cup before, I think, and that's what's doing it now.
It's a combination of things. I mean, if you look at their second line center, Michael Hanzus, he played 4 minutes last night.
Yeah.
I mean, 4 minutes. They can't compete. I mean, when you have Mike Richards as your fourth line center,
yeah, right.
How are you going to compete with that? I mean, it's just they grind them out, and wear them down. And it's good, wonderful, and they really do miss Bolin, because Bolin was a force last year, whether you like it or not. He was a big force, and he's going to get paid this year. But it's also, and the one thing I love pointing out is we had him as our coach with the Kings and hated him because his power play was atrocious, and now he's Chicago's problem, and that's Jamie Compon. And you look at his road power plays, in the playoffs, it's 1 for 24. So great, he's all yours. He won a cup with you last year, great, but he was awful with the Kings on the power play, and he's equally as awful with Chicago as well. I'll definitely credit the Kings and their defense, but the Kings, if you look at the Kings on their penalty kill against San Jose and against the Ducks, not very good. But against Chicago, they look like world beaters.
Right, and I think that's a little bit of what both you guys are saying there, as well. I mean, it's a Mike. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I mean, we already talked about the dynamics of the series. I want to ask Matt something specifically about the centers that we were talking about, specifically Richards, because we were mentioning on a previous webcast. Matt, Mike Richards as a fourth line center, making almost $6 million a year, going into this summer with compliance buyouts. This is your last shot. I'm thinking there's a chance that he's somebody who the Kings will compliance buyout. What do you think?
Well, first, he's salary-wise, he's making $7 million.
Right.
So I think that I don't think it's going to be a compliance buyout. I think teams would absolutely trade for to have a guy like Mike Richards on their team. There's going to be no compliance buyouts. I mean, Florida would kill to get a guy like that. I think that Ron Hextall would welcome him back with open arms. He's still a warrior. For some reason, it's whether it's Sutter's system or whether he's just worn out his welcome here like he wore his welcome in Philadelphia. There's something wrong. I attribute it to the hit he took from Boland in last year's playoff where he was concussed. I mean, he didn't have a fight the entire season, which is very un-Mike Richards-like until the playoffs. He had a fight in the playoffs, but there's just something a little off. I mean, it's just the pucks, not going tape to tape, him not putting the stick down. It's just those little things that have just been off this year with Mike. He's still a warrior. But and he had a great pass to set up one of the goals. I think the third goal last night. Yeah. And he's still a warrior. And I think teams will absolutely trade for him. Lombardi's not going to get the value for him, but if you can get a couple of second round picks for him. Just to take that salary off your hands, because again, the kids really want this kid Lyndon Vay up, and I think Lyndon Vay will definitely be anchoring that fourth line next year. And I think Mike Richards, this is going to probably likely be his last hurrah with the Kings, and I think that teams will line up to get that second line center. There's I mean, Lord knows, yeah. I'm pretty sure they could sucker Toronto into taking him.
Be my guest. I would think that would be a fantastic move for Toronto.
Josh, you have some thoughts and news and notes on some positions out there before we end. What's up?
Well, we know Trotz was named as head coach yesterday with the Capitals, as well as Brian McClellan, who was promoted to general manager. I actually mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, but who's counting? Other stuff going on.
Before you go
I'm here.
Josh, you did mention this, and you do deserve some credit. And the other thing I want to say is just ask, Radulov and Kostitsyn. Ovechkin can have some discussions with the Radulov and Kostitsyn about how grateful Trotz is to have a Russian players in his mind. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, Trotz won't take any shit.
No.
So, other stuff going on. A name that has appeared as a possible coaching candidate in Florida, might even be in Vancouver as well, is Derek Laxdal, who's the head coach of the Edmonton Oil Kings, who won the Memorial Cup yesterday, or what was it, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
I can't even keep track of the days. Apparently, Derek is high on everyone's list, including Florida. I would not be surprised to see him get a head coaching position with one of those two teams. Probably more Vancouver. No, actually, probably Florida more than Vancouver because of the youth. Another name I'm hearing Rick Olczyk, who used to be with the Edmonton Oilers, is going to be accepting an assistant general manager position with the Carolina Hurricanes. So that's out there. Also in Vancouver, they are apparently going to be talking with Willie Desjardins, who is the assistant coach of the Dallas Stars. So that's what's going on right now from what I'm hearing.
Wow.
I got a question for you, Josh. A couple things. One, I'm curious as to know why there's been no mention of Chris Chelios as a coach. He's been a winner everywhere he's gone. He's physically a specimen. And I'm thinking, I don't know. The Manchester Monarchs, the Kings affiliate, need a new coach because they're not renewing Mark Morris. So I'm just curious as to your thoughts on why there's no talk of Chris Chelios.
Well, I think Chelly wants right now he's focusing on his kids. I've talked to Chelly a couple of times, and I've asked him that very question: why doesn't he get into coaching? And the answer I've gotten from him each time is that he's focusing on his kids playing hockey right now. That basically takes up a lot of his time, but he is doing some scouting with the Red Wings still, so he is with the management group and helping out Kenny Holland. But right now, his focus is his kids. Maybe.
His kids have both graduated.
Are they still playing though? Somewhere? Like East Coast or something? Maybe not. Never mind. Maybe he will be a coach now.
Well, then you heard it here first. I suggested it, so you heard it first.
What else, Matt? You had something else?
No, I think what's very interesting and. Rangers win and for one reason and one reason only, and that is that one play back in January when the puck hit the net in Detroit and came back and hit quick and went into the net with 29 seconds left. That took away a point from the Kings. And if anybody looks at the standings, the Kings and Montreal were dead tied in wins and losses, and the only reason why Montreal would get home ice advantage was because of one shootout win over that the Kings had over Montreal, and Montreal got that extra ROW, and that's a $12 million hit. I wrote that it was a $4 million hit. It's a $12 million hit for that one home game. The Kings would have home ice advantage if they had that 1 point because of that stupid rule that 8 eyes, 2 refs, 2 linesmen didn't see a puck hit the net. It cost them a point. So every point does really matter.
That's interesting. I like that. I'd like to see that happen. I'd like to see. I'm pulling for Montreal, LA. Because that would be the fun final to cover. But
we know you like Montreal.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the conspiracy theorists to rear their ugly head with the New York versus Los Angeles Stanley Cup final for the ratings bonanza for NBA.
You know what? I just had this conversation with somebody about the NBA, finals. I think 3 out of the 4 teams are small market teams left in the NBA, and just like the ratings aspects, and people are they're like, oh well, of course they're gonna have better ratings. The teams that are left are all big market teams, and blah blah blah, all this stuff, and they are drooling.
Yeah, but the NBA is a different thing though, because it's more of a star-driven thing than a market-driven thing. I mean, they want LeBron in the finals. They want Tim Duncan in the finals. It doesn't really matter if you had the biggest star in the league with the Utah Jazz, the NBA would want the Utah Jazz in the finals. With the NHL, I think it's more market-driven than anything.
Well, don't forget this too, that if the Rangers make the finals, that saves the NHL a gobload of money. Because the NHL is, located in New York. And, most of the people that travel around in this caravan of circus that is the NHL Stanley Cup Finals are NHL employees who they have to put up in hotels and get cars for and fly around. And if you get, even 3 of the 7 games in New York, that's like huge money saving right there for the NHL. So that's probably even saves them more money than the money they make in ratings, because having been to some of these parties. So yeah, it's a big deal, and of course the rest of us schlubs will be staying in Newark or something like that. But there won't be anywhere for us to go. And Matt, the final thing I'd like to throw out there is this as well. Matt, you grew up a Rangers fan. You're now a Kings fan. What's this mean? Come on now, this is crazy.
Well, I will be wearing my Los Angeles Kings Brian Boyle jersey in the Madison Square Garden.
Oh, God.
I like it. Josh, anything else before we go?
Nope. I think that basically cleans me out right now.
All right. Fix your air conditioning, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Take
right.
a shower. Something. Good Lord.
All right, guys. Have a good day. Enjoy the game tonight. I'll be tracking ice time. I will be. I'm watching you, Michele Terrian. Remember, without the buzz.
It's just hockey.
It's just hockey.
Oh, Lord. How did you get a blonde wig? Oh, my God.